Good morning. My name is Sharita Bharuthram. I'm from the Department of English. My presentation today is titled Introducing an Online Discussion Forum in EED-CHS, Challenges and Possible Responses. Now, EED is short for English for Educational Development. We have a few English for Educational Development modules running. Mine is called the CHS program, simply because I work with students from the Faculty of Community and Health Sciences. Now, in my presentation today, I'm going to talk briefly about the online intervention, and then I'm going to discuss the findings and then make the findings relevant to the context today. So the online discussion forum was first introduced into the EED-CHS module in 2010, and in 2010 I had about 220 students who were registered for the course. The objectives were to explore an alternate method of teaching which is in keeping with the UWC Institutional Operational Plan, which encourages the use of e-pedagogy. Secondly, I wanted to assess students' responses to using the e-tools, as well as any impact on language usage. So there are two online sessions included. The first involved a training session on how to use the online discussion forum, and this training session lasted for about 15 minutes. The rest of the time, the lecture period, students had to write a message on a topic that they were given in advance and post this message on the discussion forum, and this was referred to as message 1. In the second online session, students had to read all the posted messages, choose one message to reply to, and this was referred to as message 2. Now, prior to the online discussions, in one of the lectures, students were given a worksheet that explained the step-by-step process on how to get into the discussion forum. In addition, they were given the topics and they were encouraged to prepare in advance. The intention was just to reduce anxiety when they went to the computer labs. The data was collected in various ways. Firstly, through student evaluation of the online component, as well as the lecturer's evaluation of message 1 and message 2 postings, and the lecturer's evaluation or observation during the online sessions, as well as the observations of the e-learning team. So in terms of the finding, there were 3 broad issues that emerged consistently throughout as presenting a challenge to many students. So I'm going to discuss each one of these. The first related to the noticeable division of students coming from advantaged and disadvantaged schooling and home environments. Now, we all know that prior school and home literacy practices play a role in the ease or difficulty students have in using the e-tools. So many of the students involved in this research who, despite the e-learning training, still found it difficult to cope with the technological requirements of the online tasks. So while these students also completed a computer literacy course in the first semester of 2010, this was clearly not adequate, especially for students coming from homes with no access to information and communication technology and/or disadvantaged schooling backgrounds. So as a result, many of them felt very anxious. There was also feelings of inadequacy. Some felt excluded and as being denied membership to the broader university community. So clearly these students then did not show much enjoyment in the task. Similar findings were also reported by Kaji, who studied the use of ICT at the University of Witwatersrand. She found that students felt marginalized because of their limited electronic literacy and that they did not belong to one of the dominant discourses of the university. As a result, students experienced this as disabling to the extent that it created a divide between them and students who have had better access, and these were usually students from other race groups. The second finding related to language challenges. Now, a handful of students lacked proficiency in the English language and therefore had great difficulty in articulating their thoughts. In addition, Some students lack sufficient knowledge of their topic despite being given the topic in advance, and therefore only managed to write about 2 or 3 sentences. And at times these sentences were not very coherent. Also, because of their lack of computer expertise, they were not able to navigate between different browsers as opposed to students who were more computer literate. So as a result, some of the Message 1 postings were at a very superficial level. Furthermore, students who experienced difficulty in articulating their own ideas resorted to emulating information that was already posted by their peers. And they were also not able to complete the task during the allotted time. So these students reported that they did not enjoy the task, whereas students from advantaged backgrounds and to a certain degree language-enriched environments were found to show greater enjoyment and engagement in the task, and they requested more online lessons. Additionally, some students stated that they preferred the face-to-face discussions held in class, as they were able to ensure that the meaning was understood in the way they intended. So these findings are consistent with those of other studies. For example, Stance and Fourie show that academically stronger students benefited the most from e-learning. However, on a positive note, during the e-learning sessions, students readily assisted one another. To this end, Leuven-Wegner's notion of community of practice is clearly relevant, where the so-called newcomers or novices are assisted by the so-called old-timers or more experienced participants. So the third finding related to the use of online discussions as a pedagogical tool. Now, when I analyzed Message 1, I found that students used language very informally, almost seeming to write as they speak. Many of them paid little attention to punctuation, spelling, and the construction of paragraphs or even the layout. Some students made use of symbols, contractions, and emoticons as a form of expression or to emphasize their meaning. Before Message 2 postings, in one of the lectures, I discussed with students the use of formal and informal language, and they were informed that the online discussion forums was an academic task, and therefore they needed to adhere to the academic conventions of formal academic writing. So as a result, Message 2 postings did shift to become more formal in comparison to Message 1 postings. However, students expressed their dissatisfaction with having to write using formal academic register, as they felt that it restricted their freedom and reduce their enjoyment of the task. So it is evident that students perceive the net as a place or tool to say and write without any restrictions. So I just want to go over some of the other challenges that we experienced. So while conducting the e-learning training, the internet connection was slow, and this caused a delay in training. In addition, the simultaneous access of the e-tools by students, especially in the larger classes, led to a bottleneck which caused a slower response rate, web browser timeout error messages, and the freezing of the computer screen. So these technical problems then frustrated students and can be very off-putting. So what has changed since 2010? Now, I'm happy to say that the university e-learning platform has improved greatly. However, we still have students who enter university with limited language proficiency. We still have students who come into university with limited and at times without any exposure to technology. So the concerns raised in 2010 remain the same now in 2016. So as a caution, I just want to say that whilst integrating e-learning into the curriculum may be beneficial, some students are unevenly challenged and still require additional support and mentoring. And it is easy for academics in a less traditional face-to-face environment to neglect the social context of the student and to have greater expectations based on the assumption that the youth are technologically literate. And just to reinforce my point on the poor language proficiency as well as the lack of resources, I just want to read a paragraph that I received from one of my students at the beginning of last year. The student wrote, "I'm feeling sad and worried about all these things the university wanted from. I just feel like the weekend could not end because every time when the Monday starts, my feelings are beginning to be hurt. There are also many assignments and homework, and I cannot do them because they need internet. So at home I'm not able to use internet because my phone is very weak to get access on internet. So my life is so terrible. I just feel like I can go back to high school where things there used to be better. I'm traveling by train because I'm living far and I become late in class." So this is the lived reality that many of our students experience. So in conclusion, creating a supportive platform where academics can engage with recent literature on using the e-learning in teaching and learning, including aspects such as its advantages and disadvantages, could be most beneficial. It is also imperative that university-wide teaching and learning strategies and policies take into account the potential benefits and challenges when encouraging the use of the e-learning platform. And finally, the infrastructure within the institution must be conducive to providing the necessary level of academic support. In conclusion, I would just like to also thank the e-learning team for their tremendous support. Initially, I was a bit reluctant to venture into this use of technology and include it as part of my curriculum because I myself am not very techno-literate, but the staff from the e-learning division assured me that they would provide support, and that's exactly what they did. So without them, I would not have been able to have an online component into my course. Thank you.